Vince Gill hasn't always been the rock star he is now. He failed for 4 years, so RCA let him go. He had a hard time paying his bills. Everything changed when he got his big break. He's finally telling the hard truth about his success now that he's 68 years old. The accident that almost killed his wife Amy, the death of his brother Bob, and the flack they got when they got married. Vince kept singing even as he cried and felt sad. He's now ready to tell the truth. Vince Gill came into the world in 1957 in Norman, Oklahoma. There was music all the time in his house. For fun, his judge father played the banjo and guitar. It was his mom who sang and played the harp. The radio was also important. Vince and his family used to listen to the Grand Ole Opry and rock songs when they were young. He learned to play Old Shep on his grandmother's guitar when he was only 5 years old. By the time he was 8, he and his half brother Bob were singing Beach Boys songs on the radio. They got him a real Gibson ES-335 guitar when he turned 10. They believed in him, not just were proud of him. Vince didn't follow a set method to learn music. He learned by hearing. He brought his guitar to school and played House of the Rising Sun for show and tell. It blew everyone away. J. Julian Akins, a musician from the area, helped him get better. Vince learned by ear most of the time, though. He got better very quickly. He could play the fiddle, the bass, the guitar, and the banjo by the time he was in high school. His family was there for him and made sure he did well in school. Vince was able to grow without getting lost because of that balance. When Vince was a teen, he became really into country music. It began when he met a boy who played the mandolin. Something big began because of that friendship. Vince jumped right into banjo. He started his first real band in high school called Mountain Smoke. They got a lot of fans in and around Oklahoma City. He played a lot of different instruments. When they opened for Kiss on March 4, 1976, that was the band's big break. The crowd didn't like it. Some people yelled and threw things at the stage. Vince didn't give up. He snubbed them and mooned the crowd before leaving in a rage. It was crazy, but it showed how much he cared about being himself. He loved someone else very much, golf. He played on a high school team and was pretty good at it. They both liked the game a lot. He was torn between sports and music for a while, but Vince made a choice after finishing in 1975. His instruments were in his van, and he had $200 saved from gigs. He drove 700 miles to Louisville, Kentucky. He was only 19 years old. The whole thing began with that $200 bet. He joined the Bluegrass Alliance and became the lead singer and guitar player for them. It was a brave move. For the son of a well-known judge, college might have seemed like the easy way out. Vince never even applied, though. He knew the spot he wished to reach. In his hometown, everyone thought he was crazy. Friends of his dad couldn't believe it. Vince's parents never yelled at him, though. Yes, they taught him rules, but they also let him follow his dreams. That help was important. Structure and song had always been a part of his home. He was now living that mix by himself. Vince went to California after living in Kentucky. He joined Ricky Skaggs' band Boone Creek. He got a call that would change his whole life. Big name on the fiddle, Byron Berlin asked him to join a new band in Los Angeles. Vince said yes. LA was a surprise. He shared small rooms, slept on couches, and looked for gigs. He went to a music club with a friend one night. He felt like that club was his second home. He kept going to a nearby old beach house, hoping to get a chance to play. People began to notice his singing and the music he was playing. Vince was looking for sound all the time. He loved listening to great music. They gave him that Gibson ES-335 when he was 10 years old. He later bought a Martin D-41, which became a part of his bluegrass style. His eyes fell on a 1942 Martin D-28 herringbone at a fair. The owner asked him, "Can you afford it?" And Vince said, "Probably not," but he would never forget that guitar. He built up a large collection of rare instruments over the years. Vince lost a lot of them when Nashville flooded in 2010. Old guitars and amps are no longer made. The two of them were close in more ways than just music. Berlin put him in the middle of the studio scene in Los Angeles. He had music and studio jobs to do. He also helped Vince get in. The band they made, Sundance, was Vince's first real look at the business. He learned how sessions work, how to change things up, and how to mix different types of music. He wasn't in that band for long, but it didn't have to. The tools and relationships he got there helped him start the next big part of his life. Vince Gill had no plans to be in a rock band. In 1976, he turned down an offer from a Pure Prairie League bass runner to play. He said, "No, I'm a grasser." Vince loved bluegrass. Along with people like Ricky Skaggs, he played with groups like Bluegrass Alliance and Boone Creek. But in 1978, 2 years later, something strange happened. He had to go to a guitarist audition for Pure Prairie League because a friend made him. He didn't even try out, but they didn't want anyone else after playing for 4 hours straight. Vince was only 21 years old. He found himself back in the band he had turned down before. That made everything different. Since their first singer left because of a draft issue, the band's lineup had been all over the place. Now they had to go in a different direction. Vince was it. This country kid was the lead singer of a national rock band in less than 4 years after leaving Oklahoma. It was a big change. He used to play acoustic songs, but now he belts out electric country rock songs in front of college crowds. Then the big moment came. They put out Let Me Love You Tonight in 1980. Vince sang Lee. The song went off like a bomb when David Sanborn played sax. Took the top spot on the Billboard Hot 100 at number 10, the adult contemporary charts at number 1, and the year end list at number 70. It ruined their old hit, Amy. The band had never been this popular before, but Vince thought it was a strange win. The fame was nice, but the sound didn't fit with where he came from. Classic country music was his thing. They did something that leaned pop. 3 albums were made by them together. 1979's Can't Hold Back, 1980's Firing Up, and 1981's Something in the Night. But by 1982, Vince was torn. People knew him, but not for the music he loved most. It was the same year that Rodney Crowell called again. He had before asked Vince to join his backing band, but Vince had chosen to stay with Pure Prairie League. He said yes this time. Crowell's style was all about country music. Why did Vince want that? It was a big change. It also seemed strange to be on the American bandstand. It was him, a 23-year-old from Oklahoma, lip-syncing his hit on TV for everyone to see. He went on to say it was great. You make your 3-minute round, then leave for home. It was a strange contrast for a guy who grew up listening to church and country music. Instead of front porches and fiddles, they have network cams and studio polish. It showed the world what he could do with his voice, even though it wasn't the stage he had hoped for. Vince wasn't like other stars when he was on the road. While famous people like George Jones and Johnny Cash were losing their minds over drugs, Vince stayed sober. He didn't party a lot. He learned how to act, and he did. He was always on tour, mostly in the Southeast, Northeast, and Midwest. Schools loved them. Their sound went well with it. Vince Gill did something brave in 1980. It was a good band called Pure Prairie League, but he left to join something new. My friend Rodney Crowell's band, the Cherry Bombs, it wasn't just another job. This band was full of people who would become stars. Among them are Emory Gordy Jr., Hank DeVito, Richard Bennett, Tony Brown, and Larry London. Not only did they back Crowell, but they were also making something bigger. They went on a lot of tours and played for Roseanne Cash. They became like brothers, which changed Vince in ways he didn't fully understand at the time. Things like late night jams, small clubs, and long drives all add up. They were more than just gigs. They were lessons. He met people there, especially Tony Brown, who would come back into his life when things looked like they were going badly. Vince got a job at RCA when he went solo. Turn Me Loose, his first EP, came out in 1984. It was made by Emory Gordy Jr. He had a loud voice, the guitar he had worked so well the other day. The songs didn't get better, though. Victim of the Events of Life, I See Carolina. The title track also had a hard time on the charts. They didn't get above 30. The Things That Matter 1985 and The Way Back Home 1987 were his next records, and they both had good parts. Oklahoma Borderline made it to number 9. 5 songs made it to the top, but nothing really stuck. Vince's songs weren't even breaking the top 100, while George Strait and Randy Travis were going multi-platinum. The Radio, his last RCA song, came out in 1988 and got stuck at number 39. He didn't have much faith in himself, and country radio didn't seem to be interested. RCA dropped him by the end of 1988. They gave up after 4 years because Vince had to pay his bills and feed his family. He also didn't see a clear way forward. He did what he did best, which was playing music for other people, so he picked up his guitar. He became one of the most sought-after backup guitarists in Nashville. He sang high harmony and played smoothly on a lot of songs. It wasn't easy, though. He was just getting by playing small shows around town and hoped that someone would notice. Never Alone, his last RCA song, came out in 1989 and peaked at number 22. It was a small win, but it wasn't what he needed. He was not lack of ability, he was just lost. Then he made a crazy offer that most artists would only dream of. Bryan Adams of Dire Straits had seen Vince play. It made him feel good. Brother in Arms had just sold more than 30 million copies, and the band was making changes. He wanted Vince to become the new guitarist for Dire Straits. That meant huge paychecks, stadium shows, and fame around the world, but it also meant giving up country music. Vince gave it a lot of thought. Everything would be fine with the money, but his heart was still in Nashville. He said no after a few days. He turned down the biggest chance of his life because he loved his own sound, even though no one else did. Just when it seemed like things would never get better, his old Cherry Bomb bandmate Tony Brown stepped in. Brown was now a very important manager at MCA Records. He didn't forget about Vince. Brown pushed to hear what Vince had to say even when other people at the label said Vince was a lost cause. So early in 1989, Vince played When I Call Your Name at a small show for musicians. It got quiet in the room. It was a powerful song. Brown knew this was the time. He fought for Vince, got MCA to take a chance on him, and finally signed him. Vince Gill had tried for years to be successful in country music, but nothing seemed to work. He had the skills and the singing, but he never had the big hit. Things changed in 1990, When I Call Your Name. A song full of pain and loneliness came out. A lot of people were hurt. Patty Loveless sang with others. She wasn't even in the music video, which was strange. Another singer did her part by lip syncing. The song still went off. It got Vince his first Grammy in 1991 and went to number 2 on the charts. It also won the CMA Song of the Year award. He had been having trouble for years, but all of a sudden he was on top. But most people don't know that Vince almost quit right before this big step forward. Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits called and made him a great deal, joined their trip around the world. Everything with his money would have been fine. Vince said no, though. He was committed to country music, even if it meant going broke. It was that one risky choice that changed everything. After that, When I Call Your Name became a huge hit, and that was just the start. Vince didn't just get one award. In the 1990s, he won one almost every year. He had 22 Grammys by the end of the decade, more than any other male country act in history. When Vince got his big break, he had already been let down many times before. He put out 7 songs under RCA Records and barely made a dent. After that, in 1989, he moved to MCA Nashville and worked with producer Tony Brown. Everything changed when they moved. When I Call Your Name, his record, went gold in 1990, then platinum in 1991, and then double platinum by 1996. 1992 was when things really went off the rails. It wasn't just platinum that his record I Still Believe in You went. It went 5 times platinum. That means 5 million were sold. That title track and Don't Let Start Slipping Away were his last 2 #1 songs. He won 5 CMA in one night in 1993. In just 3 years, he went from failing to won the biggest night in country music. Yet Vince's fame came with a strange problem. People in Nashville thought he was the nicest guy there. This was in a genre full of tough guys and rebels who didn't exactly scream cool. He even said it himself. He said he wasn't really a criminal, but he didn't try to fake an image. Instead, he tried to be real. He cared about the people around him. He gave back and stood his ground when it was important. In 2013, Protesters from Westboro Baptist Church came after him for getting separated and then getting married again. He stood up to them. These ideas were at the heart of his faith, he told them. They didn't understand kindness or forgiveness. Something else was shown at that time. Vince was nice, but he wasn't weak. His personal life went through the same ups and downs. In 1979, when he was in Pure Prairie League, he met Janice Oliver. She was born in 1982, and they got married in 1980. She was the more successful one for a long time. Sweethearts of the Rodeo, her team, had 6 top 10 hits. Vince, on the other hand, couldn't get through. People knew him more for being married to Janice Gill than for being a country singer. He kept going, though. When they were together, songs like Everybody's Sweetheart and The Radio were written. They were married for 17 years, but being successful made things harder for them. As time went on, touring, fame, and distance slowly pulled them apart. They split up in 1997. Vince's dad died the same year. That emotional mess showed up all over his 1998 record The Key, especially in the Grammy-winning song If You Have Forever in Mind. At the same time, something else was coming together. During a Christmas TV show in 1993, Vince met Christian pop star Amy Grant. Even though they were both married, they couldn't deny how good they felt together. He later said that the song Whenever You Come Around was based on her smile. For many years, they kept things cool. They put on a show together. They stayed good friends. But after their divorces, his in 1997 and hers in 1999, they began going out together. They got married on a rainy Nashville hillside in March 2000. At first, though, it wasn't a fairy tale. People who are Christians turned against Amy. Churches didn't let her play music. Her songs were no longer played on the radio. People called her a cheater. Vince said it hurt a lot that people thought the worst. Amy said it all so well. Christians are the only ones who shoot the wounded, but they stuck together because of their faith and love, even when people turned against them. Vince's older half, Brother Bob, died of a heart attack in 1993. It was one of the hardest things he had ever been through. Bob's brain was hurt in a car accident in 1968, but music brought them together early on. After Keith Whitley died in 1989, Vince began writing a song. He did finish it after Bob died, though. That's how Go Rest High on That Mountain came about. It wasn't the #1 song when it came out in 1995, but it became something more. It became the song people played at funerals. It got 2 Grammys and the 1996 CMA Song of the Year award. Vince was so speechless when he accepted the award. After many years, in 2019, he added a new line, "You're safe at home in Jesus' arms, that holy place on that holy ground." Vince Gill did something risky in 1996 that led to a fight with his record label. He put out High Lonesome Sound, which had 2 versions of the title track, one that was more modern and one that was all bluegrass with Alison Krauss. He did it to show what kind of person he was. That was a hard call. He slammed his guitar down in anger because the overdubs didn't sound right while they were being recorded. He wasn't trying to get hits. He would like something real. The record company didn't like it, but Gill didn't give up. "This is who I am," he told his team. For the rest of his work, that moment changed the way he did things. After a few years, he spent $2 million to build his own studio in his home in Nashville. It wasn't just for show. Because he was sick of being rushed by studio clocks and record label due dates, he did it. There were guitars on the walls and sunshine coming in through the windows in that studio. Gill finally felt free. Some of those guitars had been put away for many years. They were now a part of his everyday life. He worked without shoes on. That room was more than just a place to work. It was his getaway. It changed the way he made songs for good. Things became even more personal in 1998. It was his first record to get a #1, but it wasn't just the charts that were important. The songs on that record showed a man who was sad. There wasn't a reason to write songs like The Key to Life, and There's Not Much Love Here Anymore. They told the truth. He brought in strong women singers like Faith Hill, Dawn Sears, and Patty Loveless. Tony Brown made sure that the show stayed real and country. people bought over 1 million copies of that record because it was honest, not because it was well made. The big bet then came. Gill put out the 4-disc 43 song album These Days in 2006. At a time when most acts were cutting down their albums, each one had its own style, with rock, jazz, country, and bluegrass music. He asked 27 different artists to work together. The first plan wasn't for it to be this big, but Gill saw a Beatles collection and thought, why not go big? It worked. It sold 42,000 copies in its first week and opened at number 17 on the Billboard 200. It got great reviews. People magazine said it was one of the best records of this century so far. It was huge, dangerous, and completely out of the ordinary. It showed that Gill was an artist who wouldn't be confined. His love of music made it possible for him to take that risk. He didn't just keep them, he spent time with them. It was full of more than 150 guitars, and each one had a story. One was sent by Chad Atkins's wife. Another one, a 1952 Teller called the Oklahoma Goddess, made him think of where he came from. He had a 1959 ES-335 that Robin Ford once said was the best guitar he had ever played. Gill wasn't interested in the fact that some of these guitars are worth a lot of money. He didn't pick the most expensive one when asked which 4 he'd save in a fire. He chose the ones the people would remember. Country radio turned its back on the Dixie Chicks in 2003 after Natalie Maines said bad things about President Bush. Vince Gill didn't join the crowd. When it got drunk during their ACM award bid, Gill put an end to it. Put It Down, Who Is Lucky When You Forgive You, in no way was that a political move. It looked like a person. He didn't even agree with Maines. He was for the troops, but he also thought people should be able to speak their minds. After many years, Natalie's dad thanked him and said, "You and Rose Ann Cash were the only ones who stood up for my daughter." Gill was brave because he believed in what was right, not because he was afraid of politics. Before 2 years, he had already started to wonder why the music business was so focused on young people. He put out the song Young Man's Town in 2003. It was about being stood out as he got older. The words hurt a lot. It's a young man's town, even though you built it. Gill was around 40 years old. She was also with Martina McBride, Tim McGrath, and Brad Paisley, but the radio was going on. Instead of being angry, he changed how he did things. His attention was on art, not numbers. These days showed that. What about Bakersfield? It was a salute to Merle Haggard and Buck Owens that came out in 2013 and went to number 4 with almost no radio play. Vince Gill didn't just try to change himself, he also tried to change the business. He started the All for the Hall program in 2005, which asked artists to give the Country Music Hall of Fame one show's profits. Big effect from a simple idea. More than $6 million was raised. The two of them made it a yearly event that stars like Trisha Yearwood, Dear Bentley, and Kelsey Ballerini attend. More than 130 people were helped by education projects with the money. Gill played more than just country music. He kept it safe. Most people thought the Eagles were over when Glenn Frey died in 2016. Don Henley agreed that the band could not go on without Glenn. In 2017, though, something changed. Vince Gill was on the other end of the phone call. It wasn't just a choice at chance. Vince didn't think twice when Henley told him, "You're the only guy I wanted that I would have done this with." It was a short answer. When do we leave? It wasn't the first time they had seen each other. In 2015, they worked together on Henley's country record. Gill knew Glenn from the 1980s when they both worked for the same boss. Vince still couldn't believe it when the offer came. "You can't just make it up." He said he wasn't trying to take Glenn's place. It was all he could do to keep the music going, but not everyone was happy to see him. Fans attacked him on the internet. "Vince Gill is bad." One post said, "Why does he belong to the Eagles?" Vince knew what to do. He agreed that it's also my favorite band. "I don't want to hear you sing New Kid in Town." He knew how important the songs were. He didn't try to sound like Glenn. "It's not true that I can sing like him, and I don't try." He said, "In my heart, I wish I wasn't doing it." That means Glenn is still here. He wasn't ready for the attention when he walked in. It used to be just him, but now he took a step back. "I don't need to talk. I don't need to be the center of attention." He said the way you think was important. Henley said Vince was the right choice because he knows how to play in a band. It was with Gill. In 1980, his song Let Me Love You Tonight became a big hit. He even did a version of an Eagles song in 1993. But becoming a part of this band was different. He had to learn how they sound. He couldn't fade away, he had to fit in. On July 15, 2017, at Dodger Stadium, he played his first game with the Eagles. The man next to him was Glenn's son Deacon. Take It Easy was played at the Desperado Hotel in California. It was a big moment that made me feel both proud and stressed. However, Vince later said, "I always thought I'd have made a good Eagle, but in a million years, I never saw this coming." But tales can only go so far. Gill was set to perform with Ricky Skaggs at the 2018 CMA Awards. He never showed up. He had kidney stones and had to go to the hospital. It was later confirmed by his daughter, who said he needed surgery. 4 shows were called off: Birmingham, St. Louis, Danville, and Indianapolis. It wasn't the first time. He had kidney problems again in his late 20s, which kept him off stage again. Following that, tragedy struck more nearby in 2022. Amy Grant, his wife, was hurt on her bike. She hit a hole in the road and passed out for 10 to 15 minutes. Vince told the Ryman crowd what took place. She was lucky that she had her helmet on. He said the crash was so bad that months of shows had to be canceled. Amy later said she was afraid she would never get better. Vince stayed with her. He told her, "We're here. I love you." Those words kept her going. She had open heart surgery just 2 years before this. Gill kept making things even though things were hard. He first put out a song called March On in 2021. It was a peaceful but strong protest against racism. He sang that 400 years of history were completely wrong. He didn't blame anyone. He looked at himself. "That's what my people did wrong, and I'm ashamed of it." He joked that he forgot the words to the song when he sang it at the Grand Ole Opry, but the message hit hard. That wasn't all he did. Gill pushed for more variety in country music with his singing. He said that country music had always been associated with white men. That was called out. For women and black artists, he said, things should be better. He even became a part of a group at the African American Music Museum. With Gladys Knight, he was the first white man to be on the cover of Jet magazine. He told a story about that. "My dad was really happy.